Yo, I'm Bob. Into Marvel, happen to be totally blind since birth, talking about X-Men the Animated Series, Season 3, Episode 18. This one is Orphan's End. It is episode 44 of the animated series overall in chronological order. This one premiered on February 25th in 1995. If you haven't seen this decades-old episode, I'd advise you to watch it before, you listen to this review. That being said, jumping right in, and you were warned. So, I would see this one when it premiered, but I did not see Phoenix Saga Part 4 when it had originally aired. So, I missed Gene finding out that Corsair, Christopher Summers, was Scott's father. When the original Phoenix Saga aired, parts 1 through 5, they aired during the week. And I was in school, so I missed parts 2, 3, and 4. I got to see parts 1 and 5. So, yeah, I mean, I got to see Corsair in part 5, Child of Light. But getting that bomb dropped on you during the recap of that episode before this episode started, I remember being like, "What?" It was kind of nuts. I didn't really remember Corsair all that much. I really wish I'd seen all the episodes of the Phoenix Saga as they premiered. Don't I don't remember if I had seen the Phoenix Saga in reruns by the time I'd watched this particular episode, because they would only air X-Men on Saturdays. At this point, we wouldn't be able to watch it during weekdays. I mean, it was just every Saturday. They wouldn't start airing the older episodes until the fall of '95 at 3:30 Central, I believe it was. But I really like this one because we get a follow up to the Phoenix Saga. We get to see Scott and Chris have that big moment, because the episode starts literally with a big bang, because Corsair and his ship, they're pursued by, as he says later on in the episode, bad cops. Someone witnessed an unaliving, and Corsair's trying to get away from these dirty Shi'ar cops. And the antagonist of the episode, I like that he doesn't have any superpowers. At least I don't think he does, according to what I've been able to glean online. He's just a dirty cop, and Corsair is trying to keep this kid safe who witnessed an unaliving, and he's going to be framed for that. So I like how he's doing all that he can, but the ship crashes in the lake by Xavier's school. And before I watched X-Men 97, by the way, I had no idea there was a lake by Xavier's school, because, well, this original animated series didn't have any audio description tracks. So it's amazing for me to get to see just how much property Charles owns, just how big this place is. Not that they really went into that in the audio description tracks of X-Men 97, but what a big, magnificent mansion he owns. I had no idea he owned a lake until a couple of months ago when I watched X-Men 97. So that's just nuts. And I like how you've got Scott and Storm. They can't even have a cup of coffee in peace, because here comes the ship and it crashes into the lake. You have Ragnar, Commander Ragnar, the dirty cop himself, warning Scott that there is an armed and dangerous Shi'ar criminal approaching, and unbeknownst to Scott, it is Corsair. I love the moment where they save Corsair from the lake. And we just get Scott and Storm in this episode. And I like how this episode has a smaller cast of X-Men characters. So you've got more time with Cyclops. You get a bit more time with Storm as well, because the other X-Men are off on a mission helping somebody, we don't know who. But yeah, you got that moment where Corsair tells Scott that he needs his help, and Scott's not really sure what's going on, but they've worked together in the past, and we have that scene where Scott's going to give him back his dog tags, and he realizes, hey, wait, that's a picture of my mom. That's a picture of my little brother. Who are you? Why do you have these? And you've got Corsair telling Scott that he is Major Christopher Summers, and Scott is outraged. I think he feels like he's being conned by this guy. I get the sense that up until now, Scott has seen, Corsair as something of a scoundrel. And rightly so, I guess. So yeah, that is one of my favorite scenes in season 3, where you got these two finally having that moment together, because you've also got Corsair realizing that his kid is still around, and I love how they're both flabbergasted before we go to commercial break. As I've said in other videos, X-Men and Power Rangers, you got like 2 minutes of an episode, and then you went straight to commercial for like 3 or 4 minutes so you could grab a snack or whatever. It was such a devious and awesome way to keep us hanging back in the day. Because that certainly made me want to come back and see how these two were going to handle things in the remainder of the episode. So, yeah, the bad guy in this episode, he's just a corrupt cop. I like that he doesn't really have any abilities. He's just Ragnar. And, well, there is a fight scene, but I still have no idea what's going on. I think he uses robots to do his bidding. And they're, I would say, a pretty good match for Psyche as well as Storm. I mean, they're just jobber bots. They go down pretty quickly, but you have to throw something at mutants, something that's going to give them a bit of a challenge. Otherwise, it wouldn't be much of an episode. I like Ragnar's voice. The first time we hear him, I didn't really think he was on the straight and narrow. Anyway, does he talk like this? Hello, Cyclops, good morning. I just wanted to tell you that there's this guy coming to your mansion, and, well, he's kind of corrupt, And anyone who is aiding him is going to be just as guilty as he is. And, it's a short and sweet fight scene, because we have to have some time with Scott and Chris. Because Scott is understandably hurt, upset. He thought his dad was a hero, someone who sacrificed his life so Scott and his brother could have survived. And I mean, that is pretty much what happened. But I like how Scott is kind of taken aback that, oh, well, you just abandoned us so you could go knocking around the galaxy. I was in foster homes forever and a day. Nobody wanted me. And there you were having the time of your life. Of course, before Chris could explain why he'd never come back. We get another attack, I guess. We have more robot action. And then we get a bit more downtime where you've got that flashback, and we get to see how they were all on that camping trip in Alaska, and their plane gets attacked by a Shi'ar craft. And unbeknownst to 11-year-old me, this is our first look at Deathbird, Lalandra's sister, in this episode. She's working with D'Ken here. From what I've been able to see online, anyway, yeah, this is our first look at Deathbird. And Deathbird, she goes ahead and takes Chris and his wife into D'Ken's ship. And that moment where Chris tells Scott, well, hey, yeah, we were freed by the Starjammers. They sprung us loose. But your mom was unalived by D'Ken, and I had to watch. That really hit me when I was a kid. I don't think we'd I mean, I don't think I'd ever witnessed a moment like that on a TV show. Of course, you didn't see it, but you hear about it, and it's still just as, I think, just as heavy. So you have Chris, who is a shell of his former self. He feels like he's lost everything. For all he knows, he has. I mean, he saw his kid's parachute starting to burn on its way down, and he felt like he had no reason to go back to Earth. Otherwise, he would have. He tells Scott, "Yeah, nothing could have stopped me if I'd known that you'd made it." And it was such a great scene. I love that scene between those two. And you've got the scene where Scott gives Chris back his dog tags. And he's like, "I think these belong to you." So now he, knowing what his dad has gone through, he respects him more, because I think they've both been through hard times over the years. Scott, being Scott, I think he does have a great amount of empathy, and he realizes, hey, this guy was in a similar situation to my own. I had nobody for a heck of a long time. This guy's been just knocking around trying to make ends meet, trying to, make whatever money he can, just to keep his ship and his crew afloat, because he didn't think he had anybody here on Earth. So Scott gets it. And just when we think that, Scott and Chris are going to be father and son and have more lovey-dovey moments, you have Ragnar stepping in again, and he lets Scott know, "Oh, I don't know what this guy told you, but he's just after the Chamberlain's dough. He captured this witness to an unaliving, and all this guy wants is money, and the girl knows where the money is." So now Scott immediately, he's just, I think, back to square one. He's infuriated when he finds this out. And I like how Chris is honest with him. He's like, "I saved her because what was going on wasn't right. These guys are dirty cops, but yeah, at the same time, fuel doesn't come cheap, and I got a crew to support." And he's just like, "Yeah, I'm after some dough, but I mean, I'm not a bad guy like you think I am." So I like how he still is a bit of a scoundrel. Yeah, I'm after some dough, but I'm trying to do the right thing as well. That's a pretty funny scene, I think. Well, not for Scott though. He's outraged. Then you've got Scott turning his own dad into the custody of the Shi'ar. And Chris, he just has to spell it out for Scott. He's like, "Haven't you listened to anything I've said? These guys are bad cops. You're not doing the right thing." And in the meantime, you've got Storm splitting up because she's looking for genre. She's looking for the witness. And I love the scene where she has to do battle with some of the Starjammers. Like in this episode, I think we get to see Hepzibah again. She's one of my favorite characters, even though I don't know much about her. We get to see Chode. They had his action figure like everywhere in 94 and 95. I never picked him up, but I remember like whenever I would go to Walmart or Target in Texarkana, whenever I was with my mom or a friend or whatever, and we were looking at X-Men, they would always call out Chode. I don't know why poor Chode never got picked. He was, I don't want to call him a peg warmer. I think he's a pretty cool character. We also have Raza Longknife in this episode. I think there's another character here. There might be one or two others, but I don't know if their names are called out or not. I really like the Starjammers. We don't get to see much of them aside from this episode, and then those appearances in the Phoenix Saga. I hope they show up again in X-Men 97. I really hope we get a bit more of Chris at some point, because he's a cool character. I really like Corsair a lot, and I want to see him getting to encounter Deathbird at some point, because of course she is alive and well during the events of the Revival series, during the events of X-Men 97. We get to see her plotting to cause trouble for Lilandra in 97. We get to see her a little bit in this series too, but we don't get to see Chris and Deathbird, have a bit of a fight scene or anything like that. But he does know who she is. I think he remembers her because, we're seeing her in that flashback. So he knows who she is. But I would love to see these two have a reckoning at some point in 97. I don't know if we're going to get that because there are only 10 episodes per season in X-Men 97 and so much ground to cover. It's so little time to do it. But yeah, I was today years old when I found out that Deathbird was in this episode, and that really gets me excited because this is something I never realized before. I really try to look up as much stuff as I can online where people are, saying what they liked about the episode, and finding out that Deathbird was in cahoots with the Kin. I mean, it makes sense because, well, they're siblings, and it does make sense that she is just as ambitious as the Ken. So I really hope that she shows back up at some point in the future. Sorry about the Deathbird rant there, but yeah, we get a fight with the Shi'ar as well as the Starjammers. So it's cool to see the Starjammers back in action before all is said and done. I like the bit in the episode where you find out that Navigator Lady, or whatever her name is, I don't even know if she's named in the episode. We find out that she had gone to Corsair, and she knew what was going on. She needed him to bring Ragnar to justice. But now, you have Cyclops, who's kind of thrown a monkey wrench into everyone's plans. But he's contrite about the whole thing. So now he's trying to set things right. Another big visual fight scene at the end of the episode. I'm sure you get a lot of fancy flying. You have the only two X-Men in this episode, as well as the Starjammers. They outwit Ragnar, and he's just taken out. Well, he's not taken out. He's brought to justice, and they decide to turn this renegade cop over to the proper Shi'ar authorities so he can be taken to Shi'ar jail. I think I give the episode, I would say 9.5 out of 10, maybe 10 out of 10, just because we finally get that payoff that was set up in the Phoenix Saga Part 4, the Starjammers. It took a bit, but you finally get to see Scott finding out what happened to his dad, finding out that his dad, didn't abandon him. He just had no idea that his sons were still around. As for Scott knowing that Havoc is his brother, I guess he might at this point. I mean, he knows his brother's name. I don't know if he knows that he's already met him. Maybe he does, maybe he doesn't. I think it's a little vague. We do get to see them fight earlier in the show, in the series, in Cold Comfort, but I don't think they know that they're siblings at that point, and perhaps at this point they don't know either, since Alex is working for Forge and that team. I don't really know what he's at liberty to say. I don't know how much Scott knows. That would be interesting to see those two interact at some point again in X-Men 97. I really hope to see more of the Starjammers at some point in the Revival series. I like the ending of the episode where you have Scott and Chris deciding to spend some time with each other, kind of catch up, because they don't know each other, and it's such a cool little ending to the episode. And I like how he knows that Scott's going to marry Jean at some point. I guess this is the first that we're hearing of the actual wedding that's going to take place in Beyond Good and Evil Part 1, because of course they weren't Morph didn't really marry him, I guess, in Till Death Do Us Part. So this is the first instance in which we hear about the upcoming wedding. It's going to take place much later in the show, but I like how they have that little back and forth there at the end of the episode about about marriage, and it was just such a cool little scene there at the end. No cliffhanger ending. It's a one-off episode, but at the same time, we learn a lot about Christopher Summers' past, and he delves into more into what he lost, how he lost his wife, how he thought his kids didn't survive the parachuting there. So I don't know if I liked it as much when I was a kid. I didn't hate it at all. It was one of those episodes that I watched whenever I got to it during several rewatches of the show, but I think I appreciate it a lot more now. I think I appreciate Cyclops and his character a lot more now than I did when I was a kid. I thought he was kind of, well, way too straight arrow back then. I really liked his character, but at the same time, I thought he was kind of cold, maybe kind of aloof, always wanting to do what he was told, just going by the book. But I liked the episode when it first aired because you got to see past all of that, all of those fortifications he'd built for himself, and you kind of get to see inside his head a little bit more. I had a really good time with this episode. I think I liked it a pretty good bit when I watched it the first time, and I think during the rewatches over the years, I got to like it even more. And I really want to see more of Scott and his dad, if that's possible, in X-Men '97, as well as the Starjammers, such a cool group of characters that we don't really get to see a lot of in the original animated series. And I don't know how long the new show is going to go on, but I mean, like I say in quite a few of these videos, the original animated series in '97, they are my comic books, and this is a group of characters that really hasn't been explored in terms of this continuity. So hoping to see a lot more of this group at some point. So yeah. Next time we're going to be talking about Love in Vain. What a creepy episode. So be here for that, and I will hear you next time.